Injured? AEW Fight Forever has some cool new features, and we officially have our first set of Royal Rumble betting odds. All that and more on today's Casual Wrestling Daily podcast.
What is up, people? It is Wednesday, December 7th. This is the Casual Wrestling Daily Podcast. Fun show for you guys today. There is no wrestling recaps to kind of pigeonhole us into that conversation. We get to talk about whatever we want today, and I got a couple cool topics to talk about. Before we get to that, I want to remind everybody that we are on patreon.com/The Casual Wrestling Show. Just hit the follow button. It is 100% free to follow. And if you want to become part of the Casual Wrestling channel's bloodline, you can do that by becoming a Patreon just for $5 a month. Like our current Patreon producers, it's Zinni, LGRSM, Redis JC, and Noobs. I was informed by my guy Ian that his friends call him Noobs, so I'd like to believe that through this podcast we have become friends, and I'm going to refer to you as Noobs now. If that is okay, you let me know if that's not okay, but I think that's going to be okay. Everybody, make sure to hit that like button. We're doing a little better. We're getting into the algorithm. The videos are starting to see some organic growth on YouTube, so let's keep that up. That is helping out tremendously as we build and grow this channel. And let's talk about some wrestling today. So I've seen on TikTok and on YouTube Shorts, I've seen a lot of people kind of updating their top 5 list of current wrestlers right now. I think it was Narcolepsy Boy on TikTok who kind of got the trend started. But I thought I wanted to jump on top of this. I wanted to get on top of this because I think it's about time. Now, I'm not a big fan of GOAT list. I don't love the idea. I do them every so often because I like to piss people off. But I'm not a big fan of just definitively saying this person is the greatest of all time, because in wrestling, that is so subjective. It is so subjective in professional wrestling to first off compare guys of different eras is a joke, right? To compare Hulk Hogan to someone like Roman Reigns is a joke, right? Just culture is different in general. Like the amount of entertainment content there is to consume is just ridiculously different than when Hulk Hogan was on TV. So it's hard to really get a grasp on who is more over with crowds, who's a better wrestler. I guess you can argue the X's and O's, but even then, that kind of stuff is so subjective. So when I make these lists, it's fun. I speak in definitives. I all the time go, this is the greatest wrestler of all time. But really what I'm speaking from is my favorite, in my opinion. Like I got a lot of shit the other day for calling the Usos the GOATs of the tag team division. But I mean, like, that is my opinion, and it's based on the things that I find interesting in professional wrestling. And I get that not everybody is going to share that opinion, but like, you have to know when you're watching my show, you're going to get my GOATs. You're going to get my opinions. But I thought after seeing everybody do this, it looked like fun. I had nothing better to do today on the podcast. So I want to update my top 5 wrestlers of all time. I want to see, and then I want to see what everybody else's top 5 wrestlers of all time are, because mine change. Mine changed quickly. I looked when I sat down to make this list, and Bianca Belair, who was on my top 5 list of wrestlers all time, she's just become a little bit uninteresting, and that's how quickly my opinion can change. I am fickle, if that's what Bryan Danielson wants to call me. It's called being a human being. I don't even know that I like restaurants that I liked last week. So how am I going to have professional wrestlers that stay my favorite forever? It's just not going to happen. I change my mind. My opinion changes. And so when I sat down to make my top 5 list of professional wrestlers of all time, I surprised myself a little bit. There were names on here that I didn't think were going to be on here. And there were names that were omitted from this list that I can't believe are not on my list of top 5 wrestlers of all time. And let's jump right into it. This is all time. This is my top 5. It's not who I think are the 5 greatest wrestlers. This is my top 5 favorite wrestlers of all time. And we'll start with, and this is in no particular order, but we'll start with Kevin Owens. I still like to this day, I think Kevin Owens is the best all-around professional wrestler in the business right now today. Don't at me. Don't argue with me. Just intensity, his ability to be funny, his ability to be serious, his how hard he works in a match. I don't know that there's anybody who compares in the business right now. It's hard for me to do it. And even if I look at wrestling as a spectrum of all time, Kevin Owens is one of my favorite guys. He just is. I started watching in the Attitude Era. So I don't have this affinity for the Macho Mans. I don't have an affinity for the Hulk Hogans. I didn't watch much WCW, so I'm not, the NWO doesn't play a big part in my life. The Goldbergs, those people. So my list is very rooted in the Attitude Era and current wrestling. I've had 3, and I've gone over this, but I'll go over this for anybody who hasn't heard me say it. I've had 3 kind of pivotal points of watching wrestling in my life. It was in middle school, I watched the Attitude Era. So that stuck with me. That was kind of my base and core of what my wrestling knowledge came from. Then around 2010 to 2014, I was in my financial freedom years where I had just disposable income, and I thought I was going to go to every WrestleMania. So for about 5 years in a row, I went to WrestleMania. I was hardcore. I was basically an IWC member, thought I was super hipster, thought I knew everything. And so I went through that phase, got rid of that phase. And now as a dad, as a parent, I watch wrestling with my kids. I watch wrestling for fun. I watch wrestling to do this podcast. And so those are kind of the 3 points of my wrestling journey to see where my knowledge comes from. And in that journey, Kevin Owens has become one of my favorite wrestlers. Point blank, just simple. It's easy. Another person who's one of my favorite wrestlers is Christian. And this has been for a long time. This is in the Attitude Era. I was a huge fan, but more so around 2010, 2011, when he was doing some of the stuff with Alberto Del Rio and Edge, and he was involved in all of that kind of stuff. I've just always liked Captain Charisma. He's just something about him has always appealed to me. And I got excited when he went to AEW and he had a little bit of a run, and then that kind of cooled off. I would love to see him get one last run in WWE. Maybe something with Edge would be fun, where they come back together for one last run. But Christian was always somebody. I loved his theme song. I loved his finishing maneuvers, his moves. Just the whole package deal of Christian was something that I enjoyed. Thirdly is The Rock. What can you say? I mean, I think on everybody's list of professional wrestlers, of favorite wrestlers, you have either The Rock or Stone Cold. And I could have put both on my list, but I don't know. When I look back, I enjoyed Stone Cold, but I don't know that he was ever my favorite wrestler. But The Rock was. The Rock was definitely one of my favorite wrestlers. Don't even need to list the reasons why, right? If you know me and you know my casual mentality, it is the package deal when it comes to a wrestler. And The Rock had every part of that package, right? Theme music, finishing moves, personality, charisma, size. He was the casual fan's dream, whereas Stone Cold was a little bit more rough around the edges. Still had everything. I'm not going to argue he didn't have everything. But The Rock was the commercial guy, right? And Stone Cold was the wrestling guy. And so that's why I think The Rock makes my list, and Stone Cold probably number 6, if I have to say he's number 6. Number 4 is CM Punk. Somebody who I know is taking a lot of flack. Somebody who I haven't been a huge fan of in his last run with AEW. I thought he did a lot of things wrong. I thought he was booked poorly. I thought he came back with the wrong mentality. He tried to be humble, but I think that's not what anybody wanted from CM Punk. We weren't looking for humbleness. We were looking for that grit and that guy that went against the grain, and we didn't get it. But back in the summer of Punk, and this is why it's funny, because I take shit all the time, because I talk about the summer of Punk, and I talk a lot about how CM Punk was never the face of the WWE. He was never the main wrestler or the top guy on the WWE roster. And people look at me as like I'm shitting on CM Punk. He was my favorite wrestler at the time, hands down. I was always more a CM Punk guy than I was a John Cena guy. I just understand the reality of who was really carrying the torch and who was, trying to find their way at that point in time. But CM Punk has always been someone who kind of resonated with me. I've always liked the guy who goes against kind of the company toe line. So CM Punk resonated with me. I thought, he was always, I like guys who can talk, so I like MJF. I like guys who sometimes are a little bit undersized, that have a little bit of an underdog mentality. Not undersized to the point of like not believable, but I like the guy who falls like that one ring under the gladiator size. I think that's where CM Punk always kind of fell. So the straight edge stuff always appealed to me because I've never, I don't drink. I've never done drugs. I've always been a pretty straight edge athlete. So all that stuff in my 20s appealed to me. And so CM Punk is a guy who falls on this list. Definitely there was consideration not to put him on the list after everything that's happened. But when I look at an overall picture of professional wrestling, CM Punk has really carved out a space inside my head. And I think a lot of what I compare other wrestlers to is what I loved about CM Punk in that the late 2000, like 2009, 2010, 2011, that little bit of area is where I really kind of, that's where my heart is with CM Punk. And then lastly, this is the guy that I call the GOAT. This is the guy, and he gets on my nerves, and I argue with this, and I fight with this inside my own head, but I love him. It's Chris Jericho, man. Chris Jericho is one of my favorite, if not my favorite wrestler of all time. He's just the amount of times he's recreated himself, the way he works the crowd, the way he's able, like he even irritates me. And then I go, that's right. That's Chris Jericho. That's what I love about him. That's my guy, man. And I've had arguments with people about Chris Jericho's not the best. I just have to believe he is. He did it in WCW. He did it in WWE, and he's doing it in AEW. And it's hard for me to find anybody else who their longevity, even The Undertaker, when we write The Undertaker and we go, he had this long, illustrious career. But there was a lot of points in time in The Undertaker's career where he wasn't the main feature. He wasn't the main guy. You could argue that The Undertaker was never the top guy. That while he was always one of the top guys, you could argue that The Undertaker was never the top guy in professional wrestling. That it was Stone Cold, that it was John Cena, that it was The Rock, that it was Roman Reigns, that in all these different points in The Undertaker's career, there was always somebody who was just one step above him. But I don't think you can make those arguments with Chris Jericho. I think that there was a point in time when Chris Jericho was the undisputed champion, that he was as big as those Attitude Era, The Rock, Stone Cold. He was standing toe-to-toe with those guys. And I think you can't argue that his trip to AEW has been, if nothing less than eventful and fruitful. And he's created some memorable moments and some memorable characters. And that's why Chris Jericho's on my top 5 list of wrestlers all time. Now, this is funny. What's funny about this is some of those names don't translate over when I talk about my top 5 current wrestlers. And that's the next list I'm about to put out here, is my top 5 current wrestlers in WWE. I'm not going to do AEW because I just don't think I will do AEW. I'll do AEW in a separate list. I'm going to do my top 5 current WWE wrestlers, and we'll go from here. Starting with Kevin Owens, of course. He translates over. But then we go to Becky Lynch. And this was a toss-up. This was a toss-up between Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch. And if you asked me 6 months ago, Bianca Belair was on this list. But she's just not a front runner. She's not a champion. She does okay with the championship belt, but she's not as interesting when she is the champion versus when she's chasing the championship. And for that reason, I've lost a little bit of interest in Bianca Belair. Nothing against her. She's probably right outside my top 5. But I think if I'm putting the two together, Becky Lynch is the more interesting of the two WWE superstars. So I go Kevin Owens, Becky Lynch. Third on my list is Tommaso Ciampa. And while he's injured right now, Ciampa's someone that I'm kind of new to, but I've kind of taken a liking to. I'm very interested in him. I went back and watched some of his NXT stuff. It was very interesting to me. There's just something, maybe it's the bald head. I watched a documentary about him and when he was injured. There's just something about him that I kind of connect with. And so I'm excited to see where we go. I was excited to see or to hear the reports that he was going to be returning back to kind of his NXT form and gimmick and leaving The Miz. So hopefully when he comes back from injury, we'll get to see all that. So I'm excited to see where that goes, but he stays on my list. Right now, he is one of the wrestlers that I'm, currently most interested in. Number 4 would be Gunther. Gunther is somebody I asked a question about 6 months ago. I said, you guys tell me what's special about Gunther. And you guys had me go back and watch a couple different matches, and I get it. This guy has Notorious D written all over him. He's big, he's physical, he's a gladiator, he's brutal, he chops the shit out of you. Then I got to see his match with Sheamus, and I was sold. I love Gunther. I am all in on Gunther. The whole package deal, I like Imperium, and so every Friday I look forward to seeing what's going on with Gunther. That's why I'm not super excited about all the Ricochet stuff. I would like to see him in a more interesting situation than that. The Braun Strowman stuff interests me a little bit more. But Gunther is definitely on that list. And then last, this is the one I take shit for all the time. This is the one that I take shit for all the time when I bring this up. But Shotzi, man. Shotzi is one of my favorite wrestlers. And I think it's a combination of maybe just some of the things she's gone through, her personality outside of the ring. I think that there is so much potential inside of the ring for Shotzi. She's just got to get it all together. She's got the right look. She appeals to little girls. She's kind of a role model. The whole like horror freak thing is a cool gimmick that I think is genuine to who she is. And I've said numerous times that I think she is a perfect blend between Paige and Sasha Banks. She's just got to pull it all together. And so those are my top 5 current WWE superstars that are my favorite to watch and that I kind of root for. It's Kevin Owens, Becky Lynch, Tommaso Ciampa, Gunther, and Shotzi. So I'll do an AEW list, even though I admittedly am not the biggest AEW fan. I watch it, I consume it, but I'm very, my list is going to look funny because it's very casual. It's a very casual. I would say that when people go, you're not a casual fan, I think you point to this AEW list and you'll go, oh no, this guy's a casual fan. Because some of these names that are probably omitted from my list, people are like, how is he not a fan of FTR? How is he not a fan of Wardlow? I'm just not. At this point, I'm just not. I'm not sold on those guys. So my top 5 current AEW superstars right now would be MJF, Orange Cassidy, Adam Cole, even though he's not currently wrestling, I still love Adam Cole, Chris Jericho, and Britt Baker. That's it. There's not a lot to it. It's probably 5 of the most commercial people in AEW, but that's who I gravitate to. I like Orange Cassidy. I like Adam Cole. Like Jericho. Love Britt Baker. Britt Baker's really high on my list. MJF. I'm surprised I didn't put Britt Baker on my top 5. Well, not of all time. She's not all time, but she could get there. So that's I thought I'd update those lists. It'll probably change in 3 months. And that's the beauty of professional wrestling, right? That's the beauty of this idea that, and I fucking blame Bryan Danielson, right, for throwing out the word fickle. Yeah, these fans are so fickle. No, man, that's the beauty of professional wrestling. We can change our minds. I can have 5 favorite wrestlers today, and 3 months from now, come March, come around my birthday, I turn 38 years old, I may have 5 new wrestlers that I love. There may be something that happens on TV, and I am 100% a prisoner of the moment. I am the flavor of the week guy. I tend to, what is happening on TV directly affects not only my current favorites, but my all-time favorites. That's just the way that's just the way it works. And so that to me, you will call me fickle? Sure, I'm fickle. I'm fickle as fuck. I don't care. Whatever. One thing I'm not going to do is lock into 5 people and then dig my feet into the sand and argue about those 5 people when I may not be passionate about those people 3 months from now. I'm just not going to do that. I did, just for fun, I put together my list of the 5 least favorite wrestlers that I think other people are actually fans of. And I just want to throw these out there because these are always fun to get people's opinions on. Number 1, Hangman Adam Page. I just don't understand the whole passion for Hangman Adam Page. And someone told me, well, to understand Hangman Adam Page, you have to go back and begin his journey in New Japan Pro Wrestling and watch some of the early AEW stuff. Not gonna do it. Anybody who's listened to me and knows me knows I'm not going back and doing that research. If I have to go back, if Hangman Adam Page can't sell me on his character in the last 10 weeks of wrestling, I'm not going back to New Japan. First off, I'm not watching New Japan Pro. But secondly, I'm not going back and researching the last 5 years of you wrestling so that I understand why you mean something today. You're not doing your job if you can't make me like you today. Secondly, it's Darby Allin. I 100% understand the appeal of Darby Allin. I understand who he is being marketed to. I understand that every time I talk about Darby Allin, there's this hardcore group of like under 5'5" kids who come after me and tell me what an asshole I am. I get it. Like, I understand he is the emo kid. He is the like, to me, he's pretty much the opposite of who I am. And so I understand that, but he's not like, he doesn't appeal to me at all. The recklessness in the ring doesn't appeal to me at all. Driving his car over the top of his house doesn't appeal to me at all. That kind of shit just makes me go, wow, that guy doesn't appreciate life. Like, that guy just is probably going to die by the time he's 40. And none of that appeals to me. As a person with a family, as a person with a wife, I'm not looking to die. I'm not looking to do anything stupid that gets me closer to dying. So Darby Allin doesn't appeal to me. Number 3 on my list is Dominic Mysterio. And this is probably partially because I have so much fun fucking with the Dominic Mysterio fans, but it's also just because the nepotism, man. The nepotism kills me on Dominic Mysterio. He's not ready to be on the main roster yet. You guys continue to humor yourself, and by you guys, I mean the Dominic army, continue to humor themselves into trying to convince themselves that Dominic Mysterio belongs where Dominic Mysterio does not belong, and he does not belong on the main roster. He belongs on NXT. He belongs in some kind of indie circuit where he could hone his skills. Do I think he may eventually get it? I think there's a small chance he gets it, but even then, I don't think he's built for professional wrestling. I don't think he has the personality. I don't think he has the acting chops. I don't think that there's a package you can put together that doesn't involve him being Rey Mysterio's son that works on television. And I just think that the Rey Mysterio's son act will wear thin after a long time, especially if he never just takes on the Rey Mysterio moniker or never just fully commits to the Eddie Guerrero. But now I think that he's tried to kind of commit a little bit to the Eddie Guerrero, and I just don't think he's capable of doing it. And so I'm not, I don't hate Dominic Mysterio, but he's one of my least favorite wrestlers. The next one pains me a little bit because I think she's gotten better, but Liv Morgan is someone I'm just not a fan of because I think people overrate Liv Morgan. I think when Liv Morgan was champion and when she was kind of on her way to becoming champion, you guys, I'm using you guys. And actually, it's not my listeners when I say you guys. I'm talking to the IWC when I say you guys. But the IWC tends to, they elevate Liv Morgan, number one, based on that she's a pretty girl. There's no doubt about that, right? The IWC, the basement dwellers that sit in their mom's basement on their computer looking at the dirt sheets all day, they elevate Liv Morgan because she's a pretty girl. That's one, they love that. But they're willing to take the attractiveness and overlook the fact that she can't cut a promo or that she can't hold her own in the ring. Now, some of this stuff she's been doing lately, some of this little bit of like Jeff Hardy that she's inherited, I will admit has been extremely more interesting than what she did when she was champion. So if I had to say someone was like moving and trending off of this list, it would be Liv Morgan. But for the time being, Liv Morgan's on there. And last but not least, it's Omos. Yeah, we're being force-fed Omos. I don't need to tell you guys why. Omos is just, he's not interesting. And every time he gets a little bit interesting, he disappears. So I don't know what Triple H's plan is with Omos, but it's not interesting to me. All right, right, so last week I did a little segment where I told you guys 5 things you might not have known about Seth Rollins, and it actually went over well. I had people start requesting some different wrestlers, and I had a request from, I'm sorry I didn't write down the name, but someone wanted me to do Roman Reigns this week, and I thought that was interesting. I thought this might be fun. Every Wednesday, we'll just chop it up about one professional wrestler, that things that we may not have known about them. You may know it, but some people may not know it. So let's talk about here the 5 things you might not know about Roman Reigns. Number 1, Roman Reigns came from a professional football background and a collegiate football background. He went to college at Georgia Tech. I believe he was a defensive tackle, and he played on a team with the Lions great Calvin Johnson. So that was interesting. I didn't even know that when I was looking up facts, that Roman Reigns was teammates with Calvin Johnson. Roman Reigns, when he was in the NFL, he had contracts with the Vikings and the Jaguars. So he just missed Tony Khan by a couple of years. It's crazy. Tony Khan and Daddy Khan could have been Roman Reigns' boss had he made the Jaguars roster a couple years later. Second thing you might not know about Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is the only WWE superstar to have defeated The Undertaker, John Cena, Brock Lesnar, Braun Strowman, and Goldberg all by pinfall. I thought that was an interesting statistic. It's a pretty nice who's who of professional wrestlers and guys that don't typically get pinned. He's pinned them all. And we may add The Rock to that list. That would be interesting. That would be a nice little... That's a nice little list there. Undertaker, John Cena, Brock Lesnar, Braun Strowman, Goldberg, and possibly The Rock. That's interesting. Number 3 thing you might not know about Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns has confessed his desire to one day play Iron Man in a movie. He also imitates the character while fighting in the ring. So I didn't realize this, but a lot of the Roman Reigns gear and stuff like that is kind of designed around Iron Man aesthetic, which makes sense. I've seen, I think he had a red and gold glove at one time. I know that some of his chest plate armor and stuff like that may have some influence from Iron Man. That's interesting. Also that he uses the Superman punch, but he's more of a Marvel guy. Stuff like that. That's kind of cool. It's kind of behind the scenes. You're pulling the curtain back a little bit when you find out stuff like that. Number 4, Roman Reigns idolizes Bret Hart, which he has admitted in many interviews. Bret's wrestling skills impressed Roman and influenced him to become a WWE wrestler. That's interesting because he doesn't fight like Bret. It's a lot of times it's interesting to see guys who take influence from somebody, but then they kind of come into their own. I wouldn't have pinned Bret Hart to be Roman Reigns' favorite wrestler, but that's kind of a cool little fact. I saw that on a couple different websites. And last but not least, this was kind of a cool little fact. Roman Reigns is not just Samoan. So he has different backgrounds due to his mother's and father's different sides. Reigns is actually English, Italian, Samoan, and Albanian. So that's an interesting family tree. There's a lot of different mix in there. So he's not just 100% a Samoan. He's got a lot of different stuff going on inside the pot there. Let's do some wrestling current events before we get out of here today. AEW Fight Forever will be a single release video game that will evolve over time based on its DLC. Man, the more I hear about this game, the more I start to fall in love with it. I was talking to Lauren the other day about the idea of why is there not a wrestling video game that comes out with the core package, the core idea of the game, and then just updates over time? It just gives you everything you need. And then here we go. We find out that's kind of what AEW Fight Forever is planning on doing. A one-time game. You'll buy the game, $49, $59, $69, whatever they choose to charge for the game. You buy the game, and then you just, as new wrestlers come out, as things need to be updated, you just pay for the updates that you want to keep the game current. This can keep a game alive. I mean, there's games on Xbox. Sea of Thieves is one of them that I used to play that's been around for 5-6 years now. So you could squeeze the juice out of an orange. You could get some life out of a game like this if you just continue to update it for the next 3 or 4 years. Because based on the style of gameplay they're not going for something that's going to Yeah, you either love or hate those graphics. And if you are a fan of the graphics, I think that they'll last 4 or 5 years. So this is awesome. I really hope that this model works out. I think if we enjoy it, we need to support it, pay for the DLC, and I hope it works out because I hope this forces WWE 2K to look at that model and go, okay, we need to do something like this because AEW's Fight Forever is going to feel much more current than a WWE 2K game is, because WWE 2K, by the time it comes out, everybody always goes, it's the year before. You're playing the year before, but nobody really wants to do that. We want to play current rosters and current superstars. And so I hope that this forces 2K to look at this game model and go, maybe we're better on a 2-year release schedule, right? We release, and then every 3 months we update the theme songs, we update some finishing moves, we update some characters. Instead of this with WWE 2K, we get this kind of such hardened like DLC. It's like, this is what it is. We're not going to sway off of this. We're not going to give you Cody Rhodes. We're not going to give you anybody you really want. We're going to give you a bunch of people that half of them are off the roster already. If they just went with this mentality of here's the game, and now for the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to update the game with new character models, I think that is a winning strategy. I think this will do well for AEW Fight Forever. And the more I hear about the development of this game, the more I get excited and the more I understand that this game is Kenny Omega didn't lie. This is a player-friendly game. This game was built on nostalgia. This game was built by the idea of the Nintendo 64 wrestling games. And I think that it's going to find success. I really do. I think all wrestling games kind of hinge on their creation suite. I think if it's got a good enough creation suite that it can survive, if people can kind of add their own games. I still don't understand from a wrestling video game point of view. If I had the money to do this, I would go do it. To me, you could create a wrestling game unlicensed. Don't do AEW, don't do WWE, don't use any licensing. Don't even put any characters in the game. What you do is you create a game. It's a wrestling game with solid wrestling mechanics and just the most phenomenal creation suite you've ever seen, and just allow people to create all the wrestlers. And let them get real nitty gritty and make them look and feel. You don't have licensing problems when they're doing all of that stuff. And so you let the people create the Roman Reigns, the Kenny Omegas, and you just give them a sandbox to create all of this wrestling content, and they'll do it. And then for anybody who's not into creating, they just download other people's characters. I think that's a winning formula for a wrestling game. Let's talk about former Bellator fighter Valerie Loretta receives her WWE ring name. So Valerie Loretta will be Lola Vice. And I think when you receive your NXT name, it means you're about ready to hit the television circuit. I see a lot of potential in this girl and this woman. First Cuban American women's wrestler, 24 years old. She's got a actual fighting background. She has the look and the athletic background to be a huge star. She just has to take the training serious. I think if she gets in there and puts her nose down and she takes it serious, I think there's potential for her to come in and be a big, big star inside of WWE. So I'm looking forward. I think WWE's on the right path with the way they're recruiting right now. Recruiting the I don't remember her name, but the cheerleading girl that Lauren talked about a couple weeks ago. The Bellator fighter, Valerie Loretta. I think they're interesting in not just dipping into the indie pool is always going to be there. There's always going to be good indie wrestlers that you can pull from, and they'll be safe. But when you pull from outside of that indie pool and you get some people who are, look, just as long as she doesn't take the Ronda Rousey path of just jumping in and kind of resting on her name, but I don't think her name is big enough to rest on. But pulling these women out of different athletic ventures, gymnastics, cheerleading, Bellator, MMA, I think it's interesting. I think it could work. You're getting just different looks and different talents, and we'll see how they all translate to the ring. It'll be a couple years before we know, but I think that WWE is cultivating a solid women's division, especially in NXT. Reports are that Matt Riddle was written off of television after the attack by Solo Sikoa on WWE Raw. Why the sudden halt for Riddle and Elias? That's interesting to me because I called for it. I said this was weird that Riddle is just this tag team anomaly that we keep throwing him into different tag teams with different people. And then all of a sudden, we get Elias kind of injured at the beginning of the show. Then we get Riddle injured after the match. It leaves a lot of questions moving forward. We still have 8 weeks to fill. I talk about these deadly 8 weeks, and removing one of your biggest fan favorite stars in that 8 weeks seems a little bit of a kind of a sketchy idea. Now, does Riddle need time off? If that's the case, I 100% get it. This is probably a good time for him to take off. Can you bring Riddle back at the Rumble and surprise everybody? Of course you can. I think that's a little bit of what Triple H is doing here, is he's going to draw out a couple of the names, and he wants, kind of banger after banger after banger of a surprise at Royal Rumble. The big pops that you get when somebody returns. And 8 weeks is enough time to forget Riddle. I don't think he'll be gone that long. I think this is just building story, but, just interesting, man. But Riddle to me is one of those guys. He's fallen cursed to the no major title on Monday Night Raw, because if we look back, I keep saying 6 months. It feels like 6 months, but around summer when Riddle was in the title picture with Roman Reigns, there was nobody hotter in the business. I mean, he was one of the biggest stars in professional wrestling, and once again, WWE, Triple H, Vince McMahon, all these guys, they let him cool off. And now I don't think they know exactly what to do with Riddle. I think Riddle has potential to be a big star. They're gonna have to figure out this title situation. Last story here is the WWE Royal Rumble. The first set of betting odds have come out. So we have the first set of betting odds for the Royal Rumble, and I thought these were interesting here. The men's Royal Rumble let's work backwards. Let's work backwards here. I'm not going to go forward. Let's work backwards. At plus 3,000 is Roman Reigns. I think don't take that bet. Don't take that bet. I think there's almost, I would say it's a 0% chance that Roman Reigns is in the Royal Rumble, and it's a 0% chance that Roman Reigns wins the Royal Rumble. Austin Theory is plus 1,400. I don't think there's any chance Austin Theory wins the Rumble. I think his storyline's kind of set in stone. Seth Rollins at plus 1,200. That's interesting. You can never count Seth Rollins out, because I just feel like there's always some crazy idea for Seth Rollins being floated around for, maybe we give him a shot. Maybe we figure out how to work him into that main event. At plus 400, this is my favorite right here. If you live in a state where it's legal to bet, I would jump online. Now, this isn't financial advice. This is me talking stupid. Don't bet on professional wrestling. But if you were a betting man, bet on The Rock at plus 400. I mean, that's interesting. Plus 400 for The Rock, not being the favorite to win the Royal Rumble. I think that there are high odds that that's where they bring The Rock back. And there's high odds that they know if The Rock wins the Royal Rumble, the building goes nuts. The Alamo Dome goes crazy. So I could see The Rock easily winning that. Plus 300 at Sami Zayn. I don't think Sami Zayn wins the Royal Rumble. I think he's going to get his title opportunity before that. And then plus 100 at Cody Rhodes. That's the safest bet. To me, that is the safest bet. The best bet is The Rock at plus 400, but the safest bet is Cody Rhodes at plus 100. And then we look at the women's Rumble. This one is a little more straightforward here. Raquel Rodriguez at plus 800. I don't think she's winning the Rumble, but you got to put somebody there. Bayley at plus 500. I don't think so. Once again, at plus 400 is Charlotte Flair. If I'm a betting man, that's a bet I take, because it feels like we know Charlotte is reported to be in one of the two main events at WrestleMania, so the odds are high that she could win the Royal Rumble. At plus 400, that feels like a bet I'd be willing to take. Rhea Ripley at plus 350 is still a solid bet, and Becky Lynch at plus 250. I think any of those top three are my candidates to win the Women's Royal Rumble. It's either Becky Lynch, Rhea Ripley, or Charlotte Flair. Surprised Alexa Bliss isn't on this list, because I think there's a push coming for Alexa Bliss, but those are the odds for the Royal Rumble. We're getting close. You're going to start seeing there'll be a lot of Royal Rumble content in the next couple weeks. I think this Friday we're going to start, we'll at least drop the nominees for the notorious year-end wrestling awards, and then probably the week following we will announce the winners. We'll do some voting on YouTube, and I don't know, maybe Twitter, Instagram, we'll use something. But that is all I have for you guys today, my friends. I will be back here tomorrow, same time, same place. Make sure to like this video. Hit the like button. It takes 2 seconds. Let's get this video up into the algorithm. Let's get, we're at 150 plus views on every video, but only, 20 likes. Let's get that up to 25 likes. If we can get 25 likes on this video, we'll do something. We're going to have to come up with like a celebration we do if we hit 25 likes on a video. Maybe, I don't know. We'll figure it out. But hit that like button. As always, I am the Notorious Nerdy D, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.
Step in the ring, if you ready, let's go. Hey, casual wrestling community show. You already know, talking WWE. Keep it rolling and hosted by Notorious Nerdy D. Don't be show that you gon' find. Tune in cause it's online. Hit him with a figure 4 leg lock, power driver, or clothesline. We bringing that heat like for show, but you should...
All right, let's talk about some wrestling current events. Not a lot to talk about today, but we'll hit on, I think I got 3 stories to talk about here. Starting with Drew McIntyre is seemingly injured and won't be able to perform for the next couple of weeks on SmackDown. There goes my last push in fantasy wrestling. I had all my chips pushed in on hoping that the Viking Raiders and Drew McIntyre pulled off a rabbit out of the hat. With season 1 coming to an end on December 25th, I believe, I'm out of the runnings here. I'm still trying to get top 10, but I was going to try and make a push for top 5. It looks like that's not going to happen. But so Drew McIntyre's injured. He won't be available for the next couple of weeks on SmackDown. Undisclosed injury. I believe it was reported that he tried to sway WWE officials to let him perform, but they've shut him down through Christmas. And so on SmackDown this week, instead of we were going to get Drew McIntyre and Sheamus versus the Usos for the tag team championships, we're going to get Butch and Sheamus for the tag team championships. So you can just assume that the Usos once again are going over. And that is the booking that pisses me off. When things like this happen, when you're able to they're just able to replace people like this, it means we know the finish of that match. We know the Usos are winning again. Why are all these humoring matches don't make sense to me. We're going to have to figure out, and I know I just keep rolling back into this, but we're going to have to figure out a way here to do some more interesting booking, Triple H, or you're going to lose. Trust me when I say this. You are going to start losing some casual fans who they can't get behind this illogical booking. In other news today, Dax Harwood slammed the PWI top 100 of tag teams because the Usos are number 1. So I don't know if Dax Harwood is playing a character or if he's just blind. Because for him to come out and question this is literally insane. And this is the thing. I've been fighting this fight for a long time. I've been making this argument for a long time. The Usos are the best tag team in professional wrestling. There's no argument. There's no argument. And the FTR supporters, every time I say, guys, explain to me what I'm supposed to like about FTR, you guys just tell me, oh, look, they're old school and they get the good guys over and they're technically sound. That's all great, but that doesn't make you number 1. That probably puts you in the top 5 at best, at worst top 10, but it doesn't make you number 1. The Usos are workhorses, man. They work Monday Night Raw. They work Friday Night SmackDown. They were involved in the most emotional investment, or the most emotional investing storyline in WWE right now. The Usos are the heart and soul, along with Sami Zayn. So I don't know what Dax Harwood is talking about here. Is he blind? Can he not see this? The Usos are the top tag team on the top show in professional wrestling, Friday Night SmackDown. That's not a question, right? It doesn't matter if you're a part of 100 different indie organizations and you carry 10 belts from 10 different companies. That's not a flex if it's not WWE. Sorry. And it's really not a flex if you're not even holding the AEW Tag Team Championships, right? The only other team I think you could make an argument for would be the Acclaimed. It's not FTR. If I'm listing tag teams right now, the top 3 tag teams, I I will make the argument it's Usos, the Acclaimed, New Day, and then possibly FTR. Now, I know New Day hasn't done anything in a while, but the New Day have enough clout built up that I still think they're one of the best tag teams in the world. And every time they're on TV, people pay attention. They get crowd reaction. The crowd likes the New Day. So I don't know, and I haven't looked at the complete list. I don't know what the other teams are. I just know that the Usos are number one. I'll probably look at the list after the show and check it out and see, where my list lines up against their list. I don't usually agree with the PWI 100 anyway, but like this is a no-brainer. Who did they really think they were trumping the Usos for the top tag team this year? Like that's people are in denial if they believe that the Usos are not the best tag team in professional wrestling. I'm sorry. You can't tell me anybody who's had a bigger impact on pro wrestling and emotional storytelling in WWE or AEW. And I said the Acclaimed are close. I'm not going to shit on the Acclaimed. The Acclaimed are fun. And maybe next year it's the Acclaimed year, but this year was the Usos year. And I'm not really going to argue that anymore. And the last story of the day, I told you small news story day here, was Joe Rogan calls out The Rock for taking performance-enhancing drugs. This is interesting here because the Liver King just got caught. The Liver King just got called out and had to make a public apology, came out, said he's on steroids, said he's not all natural after claiming he was all natural for so long. So then Joe Rogan came out and goes, all right, it's The Rock's turn. That in light of all this Liver King stuff, The Rock should come out and admit that he's done steroids. Because Joe Rogan says, look at what The Rock looks like at 50 years old versus what The Rock looked like at 30 years old. And he goes, and that's a man who's on steroids. That's a dangerous accusation, but, I think that if there's anybody who kind of knows the telltale signs to look for, it's probably Joe Rogan. He's around he's in that world of fighting and in that world of guys who are physically fit. And I think he's probably seen his fair share of guys who have gone from, looking like The Rock did in his 20s and 30s to looking like he does in his 50s, looking like a superhero. I think the bigger question that I would ask is it really that big of a deal? Like, is it that big of a deal that The Rock does steroids? He's a superhero. He's an actor. It's what he does. Like, his body is what he gets paid for. And he knows, I'm sure I don't know if The Rock does steroids, but I'm sure that most people in a professional capacity who do steroids, I'm not talking about your local guy at your gym who's buying them from some other guy out of a duffel bag, but I'm talking about celebrities who do steroids. I imagine they know the implications and ramifications from doing said steroids. They've weighed the pros and cons and they go, the millions of dollars I will make from looking like the Hulk is worth the little bit of health issues I may get from doing these steroids. So I don't know. To me, I get where Joe Rogan's coming from. I do think that actors and fighters should be transparent. I think they should come out and say, hey, look, I'm doing this. I'm on steroids. This is something I'm doing. But I don't know that it should be shunned or frowned upon. Let people do what they want. Like, you know what you want to put and don't put in your body, and that's what it is. But, Joe Rogan calling The Rock out is interesting, especially coming into WrestleMania 39. Does WWE really want that kind of publicity if this story picks up legs? Because the Liver King story has picked up a little bit of legs. Like, there's a little bit of a push behind it. A lot of people are pissed off about that. And if it does, Joe Rogan kind of has that celebrity power to, if he points a spotlight at you, sometimes people pay attention. And if this story picks up some traction and people actually start to kind of investigate The Rock and steroids, does WWE going into WrestleMania 39, do they want that story in the public when I believe that WWE has been a pretty anti-steroid company for a long time? That's all I got for you guys today. Short show. We'll have probably more to talk about tomorrow, as there's no wrestling tonight to really talk about. I'm not going to recap NXT for you guys. If you like NXT, you can watch NXT on your own. But I will be back tomorrow, same place, same time. Make sure to like this video. Like I said, we got 21 likes yesterday. Let's go for 25 today. Let's continue to build that average up. Getting 150 views a day on a daily show is amazing. I'm so thankful for that. But just take the 2 seconds that it takes to hit the like button for me. As always, I am the Notorious Nerdy D, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.
Step in the ring, if you ready, let's go. Hey, casual wrestling community show. You already know, talking WWE. Keep it rolling and hosted by Notorious Nerdy D. Don't show that you gon' find. Tune in cause it's online. Hit him with a figure 4 leg lock, power driver or clothesline. We bringing that heat like for show, but you should